Hi, I'm Chrissy Miles, and you're watching The Chrissy Miles Show, where I teach you how to take eternal truth and produce extreme results. In today's episode, we're going to talk about living today, but looking forward to tomorrow. So I grew up as a pretty average American young girl. I enjoyed a safe neighborhood growing up. I had a pretty good education. My family loved me. But as I grew older and started becoming established as an adult, I bought into this idea that there's this perfect life that can be had in the United States or here on earth. And once you achieve that, then you're going to experience this real happiness. But of course, wouldn't you know that the perfect life always seems to be a little bit out of reach? Well, today I want to show you 4 ways you can live in today while looking forward to tomorrow. But first, subscribe to this channel and click the bell to get notified of more of my proven methods to get more out of life. Let's get started. Here's step number 1. Realize that this world is not our home. In John chapter 14, verses 1 through 4, Jesus is beginning to tell his disciples that he is going away. Now, if you understand the story of the Gospels, you realize that the disciples really didn't have a full picture of what exactly that meant. They were really still trying to figure out who Jesus was, what he was really all about. So when he starts to tell them about his departure here from this earth, he actually tells them a story that would have been quite familiar to them as Jews. And he says that in my Father's house, there are many rooms. And if it wasn't so, wouldn't I have told you that? And part of this story is really interesting because in the Jewish tradition, as I understand it, when someone would go away, let's say a groom would go away to prepare a place for his bride, what he would do is he would go to his father's home and he would add on quarters in the father's home to prepare for the bride that was soon to come and live in the house. So Jesus is actually telling them a story about how he, as their Messiah, as their future groom spiritually, he's going to go away and he's going to prepare a place. And then when he comes back, he's going to take his bridegroom with him to his Father's house. Now, this is a little bit disconcerting to the disciples. They're kind of worried because they are not exactly sure where is this Father's house that you're talking about. And of course, he's talking about literally going to heaven and then preparing a place for us to go and live with him there and then coming back to get us. So Jesus is trying to comfort them by letting them know that, listen, if I'm going to go and prepare a place for you in the same way that a groom would go and prepare a place for his bride and come back to get her and bring her home after they're married, I'm going to do the same thing for you. See, this was a story and this was a concept that they would have been pretty familiar with in their culture. So he is using something that they would have been familiar with, and he's trying to comfort them and let them know that this whole process that I'm undergoing right now is going to be similar to a groom going to prepare a place for his bride. And so bringing comfort to them from this concept that he might be leaving in a short period of time, but he is going to come back and take them to be with him. So when we think about having a hope for today or living for today and looking for tomorrow, one of the things that is super important is to understand that this world really isn't our home. And our true home, our heavenly home, is something that is really being built right now by Jesus himself. Now, we can gain a lot of comfort from that, mostly because you can recall that Jesus lived here on this earth. And so he understands exactly what it's like to be human. He is human himself. He knows the kinds of things that we enjoy. He knows the kinds of things that we find comfort in, that we find peace in. And so we can have confidence that the place that he's preparing for us in our heavenly home someday is going to be very similar in the sense to what we have here on this earth, only better. So if we want to understand how to put our hope in tomorrow and to be able to live through this day, it's very crucial for us to understand that everything that we see here is not really part of our forever home. Jesus will be coming back and he's going to take us to a place that he is building specifically to meet our needs so that we can enjoy eternity with him in heaven. So here's a question for you. Have you gotten things right with Jesus? So when you leave this place, you're going to be where he is? Let me know in the comments below what questions you have about how to really have a relationship with Jesus. I'd love to walk you through what that really means. Here's step number 2. Realize that nothing you see is real. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, Paul is writing to the church, and he is helping them to understand this concept. He says, outwardly, we're wasting away. Inwardly, we're being renewed day by day. So what Paul is trying to encourage the church with is that there is a dual reality to the human experience. There is a physical realm in which we live, but in that physical realm, things are wasting away, and we see this, right? There is a scientific law called the second law of thermodynamics that says that everything tends towards disorganization. We can see that in the world that we live in. You stop cleaning your house for a while, it starts getting trashed. Trees grow, but then they die, right? Everything in this world is actually hinging on really death. And that's troubling for some people to think about. But remember, when we focus our attention on the things that we see right now, we're actually missing out on a deeper reality. And one of the things that Paul says in this passage is that inwardly, when you belong to Jesus, you are actually being renewed day by day. So when you have a relationship with Christ and he comes to dwell on the inside of you, what's happening is that you are growing spiritually every day, even though you cannot physically see it, which is why he says in verse 18 of this passage to fix your eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Now, you might think that he didn't know what he was talking about, or this is a misnomer. How can you fix your eyes on something that you can't see? Well, obviously, he's talking about the imagination in our mind, right? You can literally see things in your mind's eye. You've heard of that phrase before. And so he's saying when you see things and you perceive things in your mind's eye, it's not your physical eyes that are seeing it, but you are perceiving things in a realm that is separate from this world. It doesn't really connect to this world, except for actually in the human experience. We are the bridge and the gateway in an ironic sense between the now and the not yet. Why? Because we're made up of a spirit, a soul, and a body. So we have a body that is wasting away on the outside, but we have a spirit that's being renewed every day. So if we want to gain confidence, if you will, or we want to become peaceful in this life, it is super crucial that you don't fix your eyes on everything that you can see, but instead you start focusing your attention on the things that you can't see, which is the inward nature of who we are when we accept Jesus into our life. You can't perceive this unseen realm, however. This is the crucial point. You cannot perceive this unseen realm unless you're born again. So you might hear even the words that I'm saying right now, and you might have a concept of it, but to really truly perceive what this unseen realm is all about, what Paul is talking about, the Bible teaches us that you have to be born again. You have to be born of water and of spirit, is what he says in John. And being born of the Spirit is literally that point in our lives where we say, I want Jesus. I want to have a relationship with him. I don't really know exactly what that means. I don't know if I even know anybody that I would call a real Christian. I just see these things on the news and I have this negative opinion about what Christians really are. You know, don't look at the things that you see. Again, even in people who say that they're Christians, just look at the unseen realm. And part of that unseen realm, the foundation of it, is Jesus. He's not something that we can see right now physically. We one day will again see him physically the way that he was here on this earth. But what we begin to perceive about him is what connects us from today into tomorrow. And so if you want to have peace in this life, if you want to be encouraged by the future and what the future has to hold instead of constantly living in fear or being worried about what the next day will bring, fix your eyes not on what you can see, but on what is unseen. And you're going to grow in your peace and your ability to look forward to tomorrow instead of constantly being worried about today. For more tips on how to live today but look forward to tomorrow, I want to invite you to download this free MP3 that I'm calling Jesus' Guide to Living Free. I'm going to show you the most powerful teaching that Jesus had on how to experience freedom. So follow the link in the description and download this MP3, Jesus' Guide to Living Free. Here's step number 3. Get used to disappointment. Now, I don't say that to be a downer or to discourage you. I understand that, this is supposed to be a positive, uplifting show, but here's the reality. In Proverbs 13, it says this, hope deferred makes the heart sick. Now, again, this isn't meant to discourage you, but the reality is that when you start focusing your attention on the future, on this unseen realm that we've been talking about, there is a hope that develops in you about what the future has to bring, a hope where all of your dreams are fulfilled, the place where the longings of your heart are completely just made manifest in every single way. That place is yet to come. That place is not here. So when you actually put your hope in the future, it actually makes you a little bit heartsick here on this earth. And so if you found yourself in a position where every single day you kind of feel a little bit maybe discouraged or a little bit disappointed or feeling like there's got to be something more to this life, well, I have encouraging news for you. There is something more to this life. And when you hope for the future in a relationship with Jesus, the challenging part about living day by day and staying encouraged is because your heart begins to long so much for what the future has to hold in your relationship with God and the future that He has in store for you for eternity, that you actually start getting a little bit disappointed in the world in which we live. And of course, there's a lot of things to be disappointed in. People get sick. Politics are always a mess. There's war, there's famine, there's disease, right? There's a lot of things to get us discouraged. But again, we're looking towards a future. And we will never solve all of the problems that exist here on this earth. Why? Because humans live here and we're full of many, many problems, lots of weaknesses, tons of sin. And so if we ever hope to try to create some kind of utopia here on this earth, it's just never going to happen. So this is why we put our hope in the future. This is why we put our hope in an unseen realm, but realize that in this life, you will experience a constant disappointment because this life can never be everything that you hope for it to be. Why? Because it's made up of broken people in a broken place. Now, you don't have to allow that to drag you down. You don't have to focus your attention on that, but remember that there is no guarantee in this life that things are going to turn out perfectly. And the sooner that you can get used to that kind of disappointment, but start imagining what your life will be like in the future, putting your hope into a future that is secure with Jesus, you are going to look at the circumstances around you and really none of it is going to affect you because you realize that this place is temporary and this is not your forever home. When you can get established in that truth, you're going to experience so much freedom because no longer will you look around to the negative things that are happening in this world and just kind of wait for the next worst thing. I mean, we're all just getting back from this whole coronavirus, COVID-19, and this was a really discouraging time for a lot of people. A lot of people lost their jobs. People died. The politics went haywire. It's been a discouraging time. And this isn't just in the United States. This is all over the world. Well, if you were to think, well, what's going to happen in the next 6 months, right? You've heard people talking about the next wave. Well, all of that is designed to get us in just a frenzy of fear about what could happen next. Well, here's the reality. Anything could happen next. Tomorrow there could be, a giant earthquake that could take out, hundreds of thousands of people in your own neighborhood or in your own part of the world. We could have another depression or stock market crash. You never know in this life exactly what is going to happen from day to day. It's not stable. So when you realize that each day that you wake up, sure, it's an opportunity for this world to do its thing, which is a constant state of panic and difficulty. But at the same time, when you're looking forward to something in the future that has actually a foundation that's built on good things, things that will last, you can actually look forward to living tomorrow, even when you're experiencing difficulties today. Here's step number 4. Treasure your eternal home. In Matthew chapter 6, Jesus is trying to encourage his disciples again, and he gives them these instructions. He says, don't store up for yourself treasures on earth. Instead, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where nothing can come in and destroy the things that you possess. And he says in verse 21, for wherever your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Jesus is challenging his disciples to ask themselves, where is my treasure? Meaning, where are my priorities in life? Are my priorities about making a lot of money and having a lot of things, being popular, having a lot of people who follow me on social media, right? We start developing all of these little expectations, I guess, that you would have from life, trying to decide if I have this thing, this is going to make me happy, or if I reach this next level, this is where I'm going to be really satisfied, really happy. All of that is an example of storing up our treasures here, of trying to make this place our home. But he's giving them some very specific instructions about why we shouldn't do that. Basically, what he's saying is this world is broken. You could store up a lot of things in your home, but any point in time, someone could break in and steal your stuff. Or things could just deteriorate. Something could be destroyed, exactly like what we were talking about in this previous step. But he says, when you store up your treasure in heaven, there your heart is. And the beauty behind that process is that your heart finds its home in an eternal place, right? Our hearts find our home actually in heaven. And so he gives us instructions about storing up our treasures there. So in coming episodes, I want to teach you about what it means to actually store up treasures there. But the idea is that when your heart is focused into your eternal future, this is a place of security, where you can actually build a treasure that you will be able to appreciate for an eternal future. Now, he tells them in this one last passage, he said, listen, nobody can serve two masters. And what he's saying is that we have a divided heart, so to speak. We have this divisive nature within ourselves where we want to be really successful here. We want to achieve the best that life has to offer here, but yet we're kind of always torn between, loving this life here and trying to build something for ourselves here. And then this future that we feel like we kind of know something about, but we're not exactly sure what it will be like. So it's hard for us to perceive what it means to live according to the future. But he says, if your heart is divided in these two things, what will happen is you will end up serving one or the other. So although you might not feel like you're focusing on one area or the other, you might feel like, yeah, I kind of believe that there's a heaven and there's a future. He says, unless you are purposely, actively storing up treasures for yourself in heaven, by default, you are storing up treasures for yourself here. Do you see what I'm saying? You can't have it a little bit of one way and a little bit of both. So if we are not actively seeking out how to store up treasures in heaven, and you've maybe never even heard of this concept or you don't even know what it's about, I challenge you to begin a discussion with God about what does that even mean for me to store up my treasures in heaven. Allow him to show you how you can start focusing your heart, focusing your attention on something that is not going to be taken away from you, something that you can guarantee and count on for your entire eternity. When you start drawing your heart in that direction, storing up for yourself treasure in heaven, this is when you begin to draw away from the things of the world, okay? And you might think, well, I don't know if I want to do that, and that's okay. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. All you have to do is start gently turning your heart towards God. And as you do that, he is going to show you more and more what it means to have an undivided heart that's focused on him. And when you put yourself in that position, what starts happening is that God really truly does become your master in that sense. But God's not a taskmaster. He's not the kind of guy that is going to try to, beat you up in order to do something wonderful in your life. It's just, that's a bunch of nonsense, actually. But what he does is he lovingly takes our hearts. He actually puts a hedge of protection around our hearts, and he gets us prepared for what a life with him in the future is going to be like. And it's going to be awesome. So you can't have it both ways. So I want to encourage you. You need to start treasuring your eternal home. And if you don't know how to do that, I can help you walk you through that. But of course, you have the greatest instructor of all time available to you to help you understand what it means to start focusing your attention on the future. Thanks for watching today. I hope you enjoyed these tips about how to live for today while looking forward to tomorrow. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up button. And if you know someone who struggles really day by day just to get by, share this video with them. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe to this channel for new episodes each Tuesday where I teach you how to get more out of life. Thanks for watching.